Welcome to the podcast that looks at truth, fiction, and reality with a smirk. All right, I'm Aaron Peterson.
I'm Brian Williams.
And welcome to Smirk. Each week, one of our hosts introduces an original story, which we then use as a springboard for spirited and lighthearted discussion, whatever the moral theme is. You notice we're a little bit light this week.
This load is getting, it's a little heavier this week.
I'm really glad you could join me, Brian Williams, to help fill in. But Amanda and Zack both could not be here, and we didn't want to just leave you without an episode, so here we are.
Yeah, picking up the slack.
Let me ask you a question, Brian, because obviously you're not a full-time smirker.
No, it's been a while.
That's not a thing that we just started that, like just now. But when it comes to writing, do you write much, or did you used to write much? Have you ever been a big writer?
Some. I was good at stories for certain, like projects in school. It was never something I made any kind of effort outside of mandatory type stuff, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did take on a couple of projects. I got about a third of the way through a screenplay about, God, I hate to say 20 years ago now, but
it's hard writing a screenplay.
It is, because my brain's working much faster than what I want to write down.
And it's the show, not tell, which can be hard to do if you've written anything else. You're like, wait, so I don't want to explain anything? No. Right. If you can't see it, stop talking about it.
Frenzied driving scene, and yet you've got a 10, 12 minute scene, in your head. Yeah. And you just go, frenzied driving ensues. Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's something I have a knack for, I just haven't really explored it too much.
Yeah, when we called you in last minute, you're an emergency hitter. You're a pinch hitter.
It's all hey man, I'm a gamer. I am a gamer. It's all good, baby. Bring it on. Well,
I wrote a story. If you're ready to do a story.
Absolutely.
You know how this game rolls, right? We tell a story, and then afterward we'll have a few questions about it. We'll talk about it, and I think you might like the topic. It's an interesting way to go. I hope.
I'm digging the mystery of it.
All right. And guys, if you like Smirk, every app has a share feature. Please do us a favor. Share this episode on your social media outlets. Make sure to rate us in your app. Sincerely, it does wonders. Now, it's time for a story. It was midnight. Quiet, pitch dark out, and Jack was the first to arrive at the train tunnel. As he hid in the tree line, he could feel his heart's palpitations growing. What an awful idea, he told himself. Why he thought meeting these morons to hunt down an urban legend was a good idea was beyond him. And 30 minutes later, he was still waiting. Finally, an hour went by, and he knew he was duped. His quote-unquote friends set him up, and he fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The idea that Charlie No-Face was even real should have been his first clue. Who could believe that hiding somewhere in this rundown tunnel, smack in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, was some severely burned ghoul who shot electricity out of his fingertips? Jack suddenly realized exactly how gullible he truly was, and finally decided it was time to leave. He stood up and began to walk back to the parking lot, when a flash of light grabbed his attention. And not just any light, this was a spark. A wild, insane electrical spark illuminated the train tunnel. What's worse, it was coming towards Jack. Surely this is my imagination, Jack thought, as he laughed loudly to himself. He took another step back, trying to calm himself with humor, and that's when a figure emerged from the tunnel. Sparks illuminated the tunnel behind him, and Jack froze in terror. The figure came into focus, stepping within feet of Jack, still too terrified to move. Jack looked the figure up and down, and then deep into his eyes. It was a man, with a horribly scarred face and cold, empty eyes. Jack still couldn't move, even as the figure, Charlie No-Face, lifted his hands towards Jack. Jack closed his eyes, just as he felt a shock off the tips of Charlie's fingers, and with it, he heard a voice calmly whisper, "Are you looking for me?" And at that moment, Jack passed out. Bum, bum, bum. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I'm sitting here like, oh, what's next? What's next?
He was gutted. Oh my God, with electricity. No, fill in the blanks yourself. What do you think the moral or the theme of the story is? Let's see if we can do this whole show with 2 people. This should be fun.
2 people. All right. Well, number 1, pick your friends better. Number 2, don't trust people.
Yeah.
Don't wait for people in dark tunnels.
I'm getting there. Sure.
I don't know. Be wary of your surroundings. Don't put yourself in stupid situations.
Well, you got Jack figured out, but the theme of this one is urban legends often spark from simple truths.
All right.
And I'll explain why a little bit later.
Yeah.
Or as we go. But you know what an urban legend is, right? It's
Absolutely.
a horrific story, usually, sometimes it's humorous, that's circulated as though it's true.
Right.
I wanted to know, how do you feel about the concept of urban legends? Because we've known about them our whole lives, really. I mean, if you're wondering, listening, what does that mean? Think Slender Man. Think Bloody Mary. Think the Lover's Lane hook killer. I mean, there's a lot of them that fill this void. So what do you think about urban legends? Do they ever get to you? Do you love to dive into them? I mean, just how do you feel about the concept in general?
I loved them much more as a kid. Of course, your brain's running 100 miles an hour about that kind of stuff, where you're just the fantastical stuff. I had a real big fascination as a kid, and growing up in the South, there's all sorts of things you hear about in the country and stuff. There's whatever, some lady whose baby died, and she's wandering around this creek at midnight on certain nights of the month or year, and you hear her crying and calling out her baby's name or something crazy like that. Yeah, those kinds of things that they've always fascinated me, and you kind of wonder where they get started from. They got started at some point from some sort of truth, and what was that truth that's, like you say, like sparked that story, which of course grew over the years to be the urban legends that they've evolved to be. So, and yeah, I mean, nowadays it's more of stories about Bigfoot or Kentucky goblins or Yetis or aliens or whatever the case is. So I think we've all got a fascination we want more mystery in our life. I think we want things that we can't explain.
Right. And the whole thing occurred to me. The whole reason I even wrote that story was it occurred to me how much these little things can influence your life, and sometimes they're almost a cautionary tale. A lot of times, like people will tell them to you, and it's kind of it stings in your head to make you remember something.
Sure.
Like I don't know if you ever heard the one, I think it's called, a lot of people call it high beams, where, basically this woman, I'm trying to remember, I don't want to tell it wrong, but this woman's driving home, and there's the car that comes up behind her, right? Flies up behind her, and keeps turning their high beams on, up and down, just bright, 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 and honking and everything else. This woman, she's terrified, right? She thinks, oh my God, what's going on? So she does everything she can to evade this car, and then just screams off the side of the road, and finally, takes the first exit, avoids this car, gets away from this car, and finally makes it home safely, right? And the whole time, the car was not trying to hurt her. The car was actually trying to warn her that there was a killer in the back seat. There was a man in the back seat.
Oh, man, that's a good story.
Yeah. Oh, God, it got me every time. And ever since I heard that as probably a teenager, maybe, late teens, I never get in a car without checking my back seat anymore. Never.
Yeah.
Never happens. I mean, I've actually started to get into my car and then got out of my car, then checked the back seat, and then got back into my car.
You have seen too many movies, though, so there is that.
Yeah,
but absolutely, that's one of those stories that you can just hitting the high points with that story for 30 seconds, you can envision that whole scenario unveiling. Yeah, even just all of a sudden, because you're focused on those lights flashing, and then, of course, the twist at the end is, hey, there's somebody in the back seat.
Yeah, it's a warning. They weren't trying to hurt you; they were trying to save your life.
Yep.
Dummy.
Should have just pulled up beside her and yelled out the window or something.
You would think. Yeah, I think there's the story. When the story gets told, it's a lot more involved,
right? And
it's like they're doing it immediately because they see it, the person in the back seat. And so they just start doing it, and they do pull up beside her, and she just floors it because she's scared,
right.
Because people rightfully so. That would freak me out. Yeah. Now, do you have any favorite urban legends? I mean, I know Slender Man's probably the most popular recent one, but over the course of time?
I mean, Slender Man, I'm not too familiar with, other than I know it got some bad publicity about 8 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
So I know that's more of a more recent type of urban legend, at least with my experience with it. You mentioned Bloody Mary? That's one that's kind of familiar, where you, what does it, say her name 3 times? It's kind of like Candyman or something, where you speak it into a mirror and
the ghost comes up or something like that.
Like
There's
that.
a lot of that's one where I think, because I looked that one up because that one always came to my mind, and I found at least 3 different variations of the same urban legend, which was cool. Well, because we all have our own version of that one. Because I heard it a little bit different than you probably heard it,
right?
And it's kind of, that's cool how that's evolved over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and it'd be interesting to see the different regions, of the country, how different it is. But yeah, those are the ones. It usually involves some kind of a mirror. Like I said, it was either like saying something in a mirror and in a dark room, like a bathroom or something, or some variation again of some wailing woman that was wandering through a pasture or a creek, or something similar, crying out her baby's name or her husband's name or something like that.
What about Chupacabra?
Chupacabra?
Yeah. Remember that one? It was like an animal that would attack Spanish villages and stuff like that. I don't know if you ever heard that one.
Yeah. It's I want to say it's more popular in Mexico specifically, instead of, I don't think it's full like South America and Central America. I think it's more, from what I understand, it's more specific to Mexico. And yeah, it's like a werewolf type of creature that they tell kids, horror stories before which is like the craziest thing to do before a kid goes to sleep.
Sleep well.
Right. Go to night. Nana's in the next room.
I mean, it literally means, I think, goat sucker, goat killer, or something like that. I mean, it's a real sadistic meaning. And somebody just put that together and said, let's terrify the children.
Right. And apparently it was such a good idea, it spread like wildfire. So, it wasn't just one jacked up family. It was apparently a whole generation of them.
People love this stuff. I mean, you use it to scare your friends. Parents use it to help scare their kids and keep them safe, because they, kind of like true crime does for us now. Our parents aren't around anymore, so we're just like, let's listen to true crime. Let's terrify to everything again. Good job.
Yep.
Nice.
No, I know. I mean, but, and I miss being, it's been so long since I've actually been scared by a story or a movie, especially a movie. But yeah, kind of in line with the urban legend type stuff. My uncles, 2 of my mom's brothers, are just horrible practical jokers and teasers. And that's apparently where I get a lot of my my sense of humor and stuff as well. But I remember being a kid, there was me and a few of my cousins and my brother, and we were in the back room at my grandmother's house, whose house was in a really, really small dead end street. There were only like 4 houses on this part of the thing, and it backed up to the woods, and the river, the Chattahoochee River, was 100 yards into those woods.
Okay.
So lots of foliage, lots of thick ivy, the kudzu stuff. I mean, it's real, real thick woodsy. So it's real kind of dark and mysterious a little bit. So one of my uncles is sitting there telling us some story one Friday or Saturday night, telling us some little scary story about some creature in the woods, chupacabra type stuff. And the other uncle is outside with like a gorilla mask. And then whatever signal they worked out, anyway, he knew right when to do it. And and he comes up with his, like smacks the window, and all you see is this half glowing gorilla mask. And I can vividly remember taking one step from wherever it was I was sitting in the middle of the bed to the hallway, like leaped Michael Jordan slam dunking one step, and I'm like halfway down the hallway, and just I wish I could be scared like that from a story or a movie again. I wish I could have that just utter fear, but
That's fantastic.
Yeah, they were horrible, them sons of...
I had a buddy in high school. This is a long time ago in high school. But, weekends you get together and you maybe drink,
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? You have a couple cocktails without telling anybody because you're underage. I wouldn't advise that. It's wrong. But you'd start telling stories, and I remember when he had his girlfriend there, and he told the story of that he heard about some man that was doing the whole escaped institution or prison kind of thing. But he would get people by cutting their ankle. I think that was an urban legend for a long time, like people under your car, right. Cutting your ankle or something like that to get you on the ground and then take you or hurt you or whatever. And so then what he did was he took a butter knife to her car like a week or two later. So this is a thought out plan.
This is the long con, huh?
The long con. He told this story, and it was he did a really good job because it was, we're all drinking around a fire. So it was kind of like a campfire element. Very scary story. This guy basically hid under a car till a woman got off work. And So he goes to her work, and under her door, because he did it 2 weeks later, he tapes this butter knife under the door. So basically when she goes to unlock her door and get in, it brushes her ankle. Scared the crap out of her. She came back in because she worked at the movie theater with me. She came back into the movie theater, would not go back. I had to go check her car. That's the only reason I even know this part of the story. I was actually, honestly, I was a little scared myself because I heard the story. So I get close, I got a flashlight. I'm looking, I'm like, I'm like, Jake, you son of a bitch. Taped this butter knife, was just taped there. The first thing I did was find a phone, and because we didn't have cell phones then, find a phone and call him. Be like, "Did you do this? Because if not, man, I'm calling the cops." He's like, "No, that was me. Don't call them." I'm like,
that is awesome.
It was pretty well thought out.
That is good, Lord. That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
And they broke up shortly after.
Yeah, I can only imagine. No. Speaking of, I guess it was sometime around high school. There was, I guess, an urban legend to a certain extent. It wasn't so much of the ghostly variety, but it was one of those things to where there were rumors where people would flash their lights at you at night, and if you flashed it back at them, that they would shoot you. Did you ever hear anything like that? Yeah, I don't know if that ever really happened or if that was like a real thing or if it just somehow got spread around, kind of like Richard Gere and gerbils.
It's really hard. Once it becomes myth, it's really hard to discern. Did that actually happen? I live right by Chicago. I'm sure that happened.
If it was going to happen anywhere, it would have happened where you were at.
Down the street.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's funny. Again, I grew up in a relatively small town in Georgia. You grew up outside Chicago or around Chicago, in Chicago. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we've never talked about this before in our 13, 14-year friendship.
That's true. But we know about it. And I'm sure there's truth. There's some truth to it. It probably did happen at some point. And then people just built on it.
Right.
We had, have you ever had a local one? Like where you grew up or something that you went and chased down, one of those things? Because if you go here, you'll see the ghost of so-and-so or anything like that. Did you have that in your neighborhood or your town? Yeah,
there was an area outside of a neighboring county. Some kind of like a ghost car type of thing. Something about there was, some kids that died in a car wreck or something like that. And anyway, they're still cruising around, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So a few of us went out to the road and we never saw that. But I swear to this day, as we're coming up to a bend, it curved to the right. And as we're probably less than a quarter of a mile from the turn, you could see headlights coming from basically the other half of that, from around the turn. You could see the headlights shining on the trees to our left. So the road turned to the right. Mm-hmm. And you could, when oncoming, you can't see the car, but you see the headlights.
Right, you see it coming.
Right, yeah. You see the shining off the trees. It was similar to that. Swear to this day that you could still see those lights, but never saw a car coming.
Well, that's kind of chilling.
Yeah. could have been the beer talking. I don't know. So there is that. So that's why I don't.
I'm seeing a connection.
Right.
It's all
There's
coming
a common
together.
thread there. Yeah.
We had a local myth or legend or whatever that if you went, because Porsche, you know how, 20, 30 years ago when we were teenagers, because, we're a little older, when we would go, we had a lot of land in this area. It wasn't developed or anything. So
Right.
there's a lot of farmland. And there was a section not too far from here where the legend was if you could find the spot, which we all knew where the spot was, but everybody was too chicken to really go very often. If you could find this spot, there's a bridge. This girl, the legend was this girl a couple years back had driven her car and her car broke down right on this bridge. And she got out of the car and was murdered on this bridge. That was the myth and the legend. The legend extended, the urban legend portion of that was, and if you go out there in the middle of the night, your car will stall.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, if you go and you drive in the middle of the bridge and you turn your car off, your car will not.
It won't turn back on.
It won't turn back on. And it sounds like, well, that's the easiest thing in the world to disprove. But I can't tell you how many times. How many
people will not go all the way with that. Yeah.
Nope. We went out there, I'm not kidding, Brian, 6, 7 times at like midnight before we finally drove on that bridge and tried it. And every one of us, there was 5 of us at the time we finally did it. And at first it was me and my buddy Dennis, and he's just like, nope. We noped right out of there. And then we finally came back like 6, 7 times later, 5 of us on that bridge. Everybody in the car is terrified. Everybody's going to say that they weren't. They were all terrified.
Everybody's holding their breath, just not,
Yep.
And that's what's great about these things is that there is that what if. What if, I know I'm 95% sure this car is going to crank right back up. We're all going to laugh at this.
Yep.
And we'll have a funny little story to tell when we go back to school on Monday. But that 5%
is active.
It's active.
It's very active.
It's like, if I'm wrong, we're really screwed up right now. And we've got no one to blame but ourselves because we know what's going to happen.
Right. And the worst part was I had a 79 Monte Carlo, right? So it's an older car already. And it was nothing new, but it would always do the before it would ever start.
Yep.
That 3 seconds was the longest 3 seconds ever. Just waiting for that thing to crank. And I'm just like, oh my God. And everybody's in the car.
Just turn it on, man. Just turn it on. Let's go. Come on.
Yep. Oh, it's so funny. Because, people would say that they went out there and it happened to them. And they were lying out of their ass.
Oh, yeah.
But it worked. It scares you. It terrifies you.
I can completely see that. I can totally envision that going down and that frightful, just hurry up, that urging just turn it, just go, man, just go. Get us out of here.
What's worse is so many times just driving up to it and turning around because nobody would. And the guy driving is always the one that's trying to be the most macho. You know that? Like he's like, oh man, let's just do it. And then you're just waiting for anybody in the car to say, no, let's not go. All right, well, if you...
well, if y'all don't make a big deal about it, fine. Chickens, all right, I won't go.
Exactly. I just wait for anybody to even hint they didn't want to go. Oh, right. Sally doesn't want to go. Come on, we got to be safe. Sissy Sally, she couldn't do it again. Let's get out of here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's funny. Yeah, yeah.
I want you to think about it before you answer. And I know the instant reaction will probably be no. But urban legends are often what people are terrified of, right? And it's simple truths that people just grow into panic mode. And it gets amplified. People panic about it, da-da-da-da. Do you think things like, and I'm not saying they're not real threats. Believe me, I'm 100% not saying that. But do you think things like SARS and the coronavirus and things like that where they haven't quite hit, like you don't see the actual ramifications of it present, but people react as though it's a full spread pandemic. Do you think that is technically an urban legend on a smaller scale? Or do you think that the things that have happened in the past have feed that fear?
I don't think it's so much. an urban legend, because legend implies that it probably didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way that it should, that it's
fair.
That it's being told this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is this urban irrationality?
We started a new thing.
Absolutely. Are people is this urban overreacting? 100% yes. Yes. And just for the record, please, whenever this comes out, coronavirus is still a big story. Just continue washing your hands. Don't sneeze on anybody.
We'll get through this.
Yeah, it's going to be all right. When temperatures start warming up and everything, it's going to dissipate. This isn't the end of the world. We've done this twice in the last probably 10 years with SARS and avian bird flu or something.
Yeah, oh yeah, bird flu. Yeah.
So we've seen this before, very, very recently. It's going to be okay. So yes, it's some overreacting, some irrational, borderline panicking, but I don't know if it's quite an urban legend.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, that's something that really I was thinking about as we were doing this, just because it's present right now,
right?
And you see people. I mean, I know people that are very intelligent and they're having a very dramatic reaction to it. And it's one based on fear, which very frequently is what an urban legend is. Now, let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
So Slender Man, that was an urban legend that went wrong. And I don't know if you know much about this, but Slender Man was basically this really cool urban legend for a long time where this very slender, creepy man would be in the back of pictures randomly. And the internet went wild with it and started putting this man in everything. And there was a lot of great fan fiction based on Slender Man. They basically created this whole thing surrounding Slender Man. It ended up being tales of murder and suicide and a lot of others. I mean, just a lot of different things. Fiction was created because of that. And then there, unfortunately, in Wisconsin, where two young girls attacked one of their friends and said that they did it because Slender Man, they wanted to appease Slender Man. Is it possible for urban legends to be a bad thing, or is it just a matter of that was just those two girls? Because we grew up with this kind of stuff, and we just talked about, we had fantastic memories about these nightmares that we lived, basically.
Very visceral nightmares and like legitimate fears.
Yeah.
I never wanted to appease any of them.
No, I wanted to get away.
Right. I didn't want to do them any favors. No, I when you really strip it down, I think it's like so many other issues in this country and throughout the world. I think it is a mental health issue. In their case, probably just more simple that mommy or daddy didn't love them or hug them enough or something like that, or give them enough attention, or I don't know. I don't know the details. I know like the headline of that story, and that's kind of about it.
Right.
So they're looking for acceptance in some capacity. It's really not much different than somebody who kills 12 people because he feels like God told him to do it.
Yep. I feel the same way.
I don't think it's the urban legend's fault. I don't think it's the people writing the fan fiction. I think it's more of those individuals who are just, not mentally strong enough to separate that from reality.
And those last two questions, I just kind of brought up because we were talking about urban legends, and what I wanted to kind of get to, like, what do you think feeds that? And I'm with you 100%. It's just, I feel for that young girl that was attacked, and that whole situation was horrible. And it was in Wisconsin, which is near me. So it's neighboring. So it's very present in our minds here. But, a lot of people were calling for, get this kind of stuff off the internet, get it out of there, da-da-da-da. I'm like, I can't tell you how many great memories I've had because, and obviously this is an exception. There's always going to be a horrific example of whatever you love going awry. Mm-hmm. Whatever, Dark Knight, that whole theater incident. Look at that. I love movies, and that's a damn shame.
It almost ruined an unrelated movie.
Absolutely. Everyone midnight shows.
Joker, people were trying to shut that movie from being shown because of something that happened years before to officially an unrelated movie. I know Joker and Batman are connected. I know that. Don't please.
And there's
if anybody knows that, it's me. However, the movies are not related other than both properties are owned by DC or Warner Brothers, whatever.
And those are like our modern urban legends where we build a panic and fear in our minds based on previous events that this is going to be even worse. And that happened. You're right. With Joker, that came out. Remember, everybody was telling us, you can't, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. There's all this protection being taken place. And then it played for months and there was nothing.
Nothing. Not one incident. Nope.
In my mind, all of these incidents are mental health issues. I agree. And there's exceptions to everything. And urban legends are an important part of growing up because it teaches you to face your fears in a lot of ways that people never want to talk about. But I faced a lot of fear because of that stuff. Because finally getting to that bridge, it took me like 6 or 7 times, but finally going on that bridge and doing it was like facing a fear. And it really, like, I, at that time, kind of believed in ghosts. And so I thought this had to be a real thing. I don't believe in them anymore. And a lot of it is because of that. I mean, because I faced it, walked out just fine.
But.
Yeah, there's always a but.
But I love 2 words. What if?
You son of a bitch.
What if? What if, right? We deem people that are just, again, it's you see you kind of see you see it in some movies here and there, but I mean, we deem these people as, okay, you're nuts. This is ridiculous. And that's what I love. And I hate to even spoil this movie, but Bill Paxton in Frailty. Like, I think it was Frailty. Yeah. It was the one where he's killing the people.
Right.
And he says, well, God, God's telling him to do it and all this other stuff. And yet he goes through these places with cameras and all of a sudden, mysteriously, because it's not him doing it, but they go staticky. You can't see him doing it. There's something else helping him, which it's pushing you to believe is God or something, some kind of power.
So what if?
What if it's just something we don't understand? What if, I'm just saying, all right, just for the sake of that urban individual, what if Slender Man exists? What if they were actually appeasing him? And that just opens up, and I love asking what if, because that just opens up just all kinds of possibilities. All kinds of, you got to, of course, you can't go crazy with it. You'll be sitting on a park bench rocking back and forth, talking to pigeons or something that, you do that too much. And them responding, or at least you're thinking they're responding. But God, but what if that is right? What if, whatever, Bigfoot is real? What if, what if?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So those kinds of things. It's like,
that's a great point.
But I love when I see these people like, they got some crazy, like fantastical story that whatever, the Teletubbies told me to, to steal $80,000 worth of products from Walmart. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. However, what if, what if they actually did?
What if they were hanging out behind Walmart and some dude dressed as a Teletubby
with 4 matching vans filled up with cargo?
That's actually brilliant. The next time you feel like an urban legend could not be true, just ask yourself, what if? What if? I like that.
And you can spend the next you don't have to spend the next 2 weeks thinking about it or dwelling it or going down some rabbit holes, but take like 5 minutes and just go down different avenues of what if. What if?
That's a great way to end. All right. What do you think the story was, truth or fiction?
God, well, I'm not off to a good start. So I'll go, I'll go with false.
It's true.
Of course it is.
His name was Raymond Robinson, and he had suffered a severe accident involving an electrical line that left him with a disfigured face. And because of this, he became a bit of a recluse, staying inside during the day and only venturing out at night. He didn't really do any haunting. He was actually very friendly, and he would occasionally let curious teens take pictures with him in exchange for cigarettes.
So he was Deadpool without all the cool fighting skills.
Or the clever wit.
Or the clever witty banter. But,
All right. And the title of my story is The Spark of Charlie No Face.
Ooh. God, that's like a cool name. That's like a mob name, though. You know
that's
what I mean?
actually, but that's what the urban legend called him. It's actually in Pennsylvania. This is a Pittsburgh area. And they called him Charlie No Face. That was actually what they called him.
Wow. It's kind of a cool name, though. And
it was cool to find. I was really hunting for an urban legend that was proven to be true, because I didn't want one where people thought it was true, or they kind of, I wanted one that was true, so I could fool you, I guess.
Well, obviously it's not very hard.
I mean, you said it. As the show goes, we will occasionally pick listener stories to read and discuss on Smirk. If you'd like the chance to have yours read, email it to mystory@smirkpodcast.com. If you like Smirk, please share the show on your social media outlets. You can also join our Facebook group, follow us on Twitter @SmirkPodcast, and be sure to use the show's hashtag. When you subscribe and you rate us on your podcast app of choice, you can also check out our website at smirkpodcast.com. Brian, thanks so much for doing this, man. I was really worried about having it just us two. I think we did great.
I'm really stretching to kind of pat myself on the back. I hope the audio picks it up.
Yeah, hope we don't have any issues.
I'm thinking, you know what, this load ain't that heavy to carry after all. We got this. We got this.
I can't wait for them
Zach,
to listen.
Sorry, Amanda. Love y'all, but y'all fired.
All right, everybody. And as you write your own life stories, always remember to tell them with a smirk. Oh, that was funny.
That was
Bye,
good.
bitches.
Bye, Felicia.